The Israeli military says it's intercepted a missile that was launched from Yemen by Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. That's according to reports from Reuters. And the projectile had reportedly been heading towards Jerusalem. The White House says President Trump, quote, fully supports Israel's actions in Gaza after the IDF resumed ground operations in the war-torn territory yesterday. The Israeli military says it is targeting Hamas infrastructure and weapon sites and has vowed to, quote, open the gates of hell in Gaza if the remaining hostages aren't returned and Prime Minister Netanyahu's demands aren't met. Now, as a response, Hamas fired its first wave of rockets at Israel in months. Israeli officials say no casualties have been reported. CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio has more.
Yes, Israel's military threatened to unleash hell on Gaza this week, and it is now delivering. At least 58 people were killed in a third night in a row of airstrikes up and down the Strip, taking the death toll to roughly an estimated 500 people since the ceasefire was shattered on Tuesday with Israel's shock pre-dawn missile barrages. Early morning reports came in today of more airstrikes near southern Khan Yunis and Rafah, which is on Egypt's border. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has warned Gaza to return the hostages and expel Hamas, the alternative being total destruction and devastation. However, collective punishment is a violation of the Geneva Conventions and deemed a war crime. In reaction to Israel's renewed bombing of Gaza, Houthi militants in Yemen claimed that they fired a hypersonic missile at Israel before dawn this morning. We here in Tel Aviv were jolted awake at about 4 a.m. This was the second Houthi missile directed here in 3 days, and this new attempt targeted Ben Gurion International Airport just south of Tel Aviv. The Houthis also claim that they targeted the USS Harry Truman aircraft carrier strike group right now in the Red Sea. Also overnight, the U.S. struck targets in Yemen's capital of Sana'a. That's according to Houthi-run TV. At least 9 women and children were wounded in one residential neighborhood. That's according to the Houthi-run health ministry. U.S. Central Command says operations are still continuing 24/7 after the Houthis started to target Israeli ships in the Red Sea. Back to you.
Ramy Inocencio, thank you. I want to bring in Mark Cancian for more on this. He's a senior advisor with the Defense and Security Department at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, so kind of play this out for me. I mean, from a strategic standpoint, is this offensive a negotiating tactic, or do you think this is the return to what we saw in an earlier phase of the war?
I think it's the latter. It's more than just a negotiating tactic. I think that Israel is uncomfortable with the previous negotiations. They had thought that they might destroy Hamas and therefore could withdraw and get its hostages back. It looks like Hamas is still active. And when the Israelis leave, they will take back over. The Israelis find that unacceptable.
I mean, what does this mean for the future ceasefire negotiations? Because let's remember, there are still hostages there. There is pressure on Netanyahu from his own people to get those back.
There is, but I think Israel has made a judgment that they can put pressure on Hamas. President Trump is backing the Israelis very strongly, so they feel secure in that support. And the number of hostages left is not that great. It's probably something between 5 and 20 hostages still alive, and there may be another 30 or 40 bodies to be recovered. And I think when Israel looks at that, as much as they would like to get their hostages back, but facing the prospect of a Gaza that is returned to Hamas control, they're deciding to attack Hamas, trying to get a better deal.
Mark Cancian, I really appreciate your time. We're going to be following this very closely.